What do you want? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to make a decision? Many people are now looking to have a coach who will walk them through the process so they can come up with the answer themselves, perhaps. That's an overly simplistic description of what our next guest does. She's a contributor to the Marc Bernier program. She's a best-selling author. She's a world traveler, and she will head to Europe before we even know it. Emily Madill joins us now live today on WNDB. Do you figure how many miles a year you log in travel?
Hi, Mark.
Hey.
I do my fair share, that's for sure.
Okay. Why did you become a coach?
Why did I become a coach? That's a great question. Well, it really came down to wanting to inspire other people and to be, of service to other people doing what I love to do. The great thing that I love about coaching, Mark, is that it's really a positive space. It's not talking about people's past problems or really talking about, all the reasons why things aren't working. It's just this really cool sacred space where people really dig deep into what's most important to them. And I get a real charge out of being in those really powerful conversations with people, and I end up leaving uplifted. So it's been a great fit for me.
Okay. People have known Emily on this program for her children's books that help enrichment and education for the young. Give us some examples of the types of people who might seek coaching to help them. They're going through a struggle. They're trying to make a decision. I'm trying to narrow this down so that people will understand the value of coaching. Who uses coaches?
Well, I think just about anybody can use coaching, Mark, which is why I love it so much, because it's not just about, a lot of people might go to a personal coach if they are going through a transformation or a change, and sometimes it is when people are at a crossroads. But really, I have a coach, and I have even before I went into coaching, and it's just a great person to be accountable to in pursuing your dreams and goals. And really, they can be used in workplaces. I know the model that I learned is really wonderful to go into workplaces and work on like team building and, basically if you're a human being and you're open to it, I think that's the, number one thing. You really do have to want to be there. You could really benefit from coaching. It's not just for people that have problems at all.
But coaches, as you told me, at least in your case, you're not telling people what to do.
Absolutely not. No, it's an advice-free zone, 100%. And, there is a lot of, coaching out there in the world. And so, the program that I went through, it was really expensive, and it's bound to the ICF. So there's the International Coach Federation. They're a professional board, and they kind of really, have a high precedence of what, the people that have gone through that particular training really do have to kind of adhere to. And so, I think if you are looking for a coach, it's a really great idea to, even just go on to the International Coach Federation website and, look at coaches in your area that have done that training, because you're really going to get great value.
This is not
a certified professional coach.
I'm sorry, this is not counseling. So that anybody just joining us understands, it's not counseling. So how does a coaching session work? Give me let's take people through what it might be like. Okay.
Well, so I use a solutions focus model. So really, I would set up kind of a nice light kind of feeling space for the people or for the client that I'm working with. And, we would start out just by, say if you were my client, Mark, I might just say, Mark, we have, 30 minutes today to, work together. What would you want to have by the end of the session? And so it really kind of puts the client in the driver's seat of, where they want to go. But it's also, as a coach, it's up to me to really ask those powerful questions that are going to have the client kind of digging deeper into what they most want, right? So, it is quite a powerful conversation. And so you might say, whatever it is that you'd like to work on, I would then, ask you, how will you know, even by the end of our session, that, you've got to that place? What's going to give you that's even deeper than that? So it just really allows people to kind of go into a deeper level of awareness and perspective, right? I think so often as people, we don't really get that perspective of ourselves. We don't always see ourselves as other people see them. So throughout the coaching conversation, people really do get this great awareness of themselves, and a really great self-awareness, and they see how resourceful that they are, and that they do have the answers within themselves to move forward towards whatever goal that might be in either their personal or professional life.
Is a coaching session relegated to a single issue?
It's whatever the client wants to discuss. So you could, somebody might want to develop a project or something like that over a period of time, and they might want the support of a coach. It really is individual for what that person is looking for. I can have a really powerful coaching conversation with somebody in 20 minutes. Like if they're stuck on something, and just in the questioning, the level of questioning that people are asked, they can really gain their own awareness and aha moments for themselves. So it's definitely, you could just work on one topic for yourself.
Because it isn't counseling, you may not fall into the trap of having to have malpractice insurance, but is there any type of liability or risk at being a practitioner like you are?
Yeah, well, I am bound to the ICF Code of Ethics, absolutely, because I have, taken a professional program. So, yeah, it is different than counseling, and, in my contracting and all of that, we definitely, before I would enter into any kind of coaching relationship with somebody, we would both be very clear on what coaching is and what it isn't, and, on the liabilities and those sorts of things as well. But, as a professional coach, yeah, I definitely am bound to, there is a whole code of ethics, which I also do give to my clients, so they're aware of, what, they can expect from me, the level of quality that I'm operating under.
I know there's a whole bunch of variables, but how often would a person seek a coaching assignment? In other words, is it something that goes on for a period of time and sessions, or is it a one-shot deal? When you go to a coach, do you plan to speak to that coach more than once?
Generally, yes. And again, Mark, that it does go on a client-to-client basis. But generally, for somebody to get that real value, generally they would set up, a series of coaching sessions. But I would certainly, do a one-off too if somebody is just looking to do one coaching session. But I think the value really happens over a period of time. But the idea here too is to get people to a place where they're really resourceful on their own, so that they're not reliant on a coach or anybody else for getting those things in their life. But people might, have a coach, they might really meet with that coach quite often for, say a 6-month period, and then, things are going well on their projects, whatever area it is that they've worked on are going great. And then, it might be a year or two down the road where they might, kind of go back in and pick up a few sessions too. So I know with my coach, I talk to her, usually every couple of months just as a check-in, and I find that that's really valuable for me. I think, it really does depend on the individual person and the package that they're doing.
To be successfully coached, I have to believe the client has to have good communication skills. In other words, if you're not a talker, you're not going to benefit from coaching, right?
No, not necessarily. I think you just have to be human and you have to be open. I mean, I don't think that many people are really ever, put in that situation where they have that space just for themselves to really explore what it is that's most important to them. Like, how often are you asked, Mark, what is it that you want? Right? And I think any human being could answer that. And I'll sit there for as long as it takes, with a person in that, within that time slot for them to answer a question. I'm not going to rush it. Everybody has their own individual process with how they communicate. And I think that's, another great thing about coaching. The main criteria is that people have to want to be there.
How do you measure success in coaching? How do you know you're successful as a coach?
Well, I think it's client-driven. I don't, it's not up to me to really know the content of what somebody's talking about. I have all kinds of tools that could help people through something and maybe designing some kind of a time management plan or things like that. But it's really for the client. They really set what the criteria is for what that success looks like. So, and I'm going to ask that, and I'm going to ask challenging, powerful questions, and you can feel it. There's a flow in a conversation if people are really getting that value. And I always end my sessions, Mark, with asking, how was this of value to you today? And so people have that opportunity, not to give me feedback about me, but to really, go over that again for themselves so that they can, see the value that they get through being resourceful.
Now, you're just getting this business started in addition to the other businesses you have. How long or how often have you coached people? I know, again, this is just beginning. You're just getting the business started, right?
Yeah, just kind of getting going. Well, in saying that, I've had, because there's all kinds of hours that I have to do or I had to do in order to, as part of the course. So, I've done a lot of coaching with people, peers inside of my program as well as peers outside. But yeah, I just am beginning, and I'm excited about that. And again, it's a really cool model, the solutions focused model that I learned, and I just love that it really focuses on. It really ties in well with everything that I've already been doing, Mark. We've talked about this, and I love empowerment, and so. For coaching, it just really is. It's about focusing on what you do want. And I just think it's so important because what we do focus on is what we end up creating in our lives. And so with coaching, you get to really, kind of leave the past behind and leave all the reasons why and just really focus on where it is that you do want to go and how you're realistically going to take the steps to get there.
I think it's Fortune magazine that showed that it's one of the fastest growing parts of personal enrichment. The field that you've chosen is growing. Is there a basic profile of a person who uses coaches? Is it upwardly mobile, affluent business people? Who's most likely to be a candidate for coaching?
Well, again, I think it all, it comes down to, people I wouldn't say I'm a super successful business person out there, but I really love coaching. And so, I think a lot of, obviously professional athletes and performers and, people, high-profile people definitely use coaching to kind of gain that perspective and awareness and to keep moving forward. So lots of forward-thinking people would definitely be great candidates for coaching, but it's not to say that, anybody just looking to, people going through a life transition, say people, entering into parenthood or people going into retirement. I know I've had clients that have, been newly retired and they're just looking, there's nothing wrong in their lives. You don't have to have a problem in your life, but they're just kind of looking at, okay, well, what does life look like for me now? And I kind of want to create a plan around that. Well, guess what? Coaching is a really wonderful space to kind of, gain some clarity for the client around that.
Is there an organization that will rate or check in with coaches to see if they're following the criteria of being a coach? A policing, if you will.
Well, a lot of people are coaches, and, there's all different trainings around. And, I'm not super familiar other than, the training that I've had. And the reason why I chose Erickson International, well, there was a couple of things. One is that they're an ICF, which is the International Coach Federation accredited program. And so if I was to go into, bigger businesses, like, say, a bank or whatever, and do, kind of teamwork coaching, they're going to look for that credential of coaches. So, I know that being an ICF, having that kind of credential behind you, yes, you're certainly bound to that. And, there's places where people could complain if you're not adhering to it. But yeah, I don't really know, Mark, how they would kind of monitor that or check in with it other than like any kind of profession. It would be somebody kind of calling you out against that with that, would kind of hold you accountable to it or not. But yeah, with Erickson, I really like that they are an accredited program, and then they're also a really international school, and so they're in like 36 different countries around the world. So I just really love that. It's about bringing a whole bunch of different cultures together, and it is a hugely growing field right now. Like, I think, it's been around since, the early 90s or even before that, and I think we'll see it grow more and more as time goes on.
Finally, you're going to be having a new book come out next month. You're not giving up that part of your life. Tell us what that book is going to be about.
Well, it's based on a pilot project that I did in 2014, and the title is called How to Fall in Love with Your Life One Week at a Time. And it's basically, I didn't know it at the time, but as I was creating it, but it really blends itself in nicely with coaching because it's almost like a self-coaching process. So it's a workbook-style book, and people will have kind of a focus each week that they'll go through. And I'm actually creating an online course with it that people could choose to go into or not. And it basically is just like anything, the more we kind of adopt these habits over time, it becomes easier for them to kind of be a way of living, right? So I basically just take really kind of simple things and you just kind of integrate them on a weekly basis to kind of not to necessarily even change your life, but to change your perspective on how you feel about life. And maybe, there's a lot in there actually, and you and I have talked about it over the last year too, just on like comfort zones and, setting goals and all of those things. So over a 52-week process, which I walked through myself, and I had a pilot project of people that walked through it with me over a year period, it was really amazing. The results that I had in my life and how I felt about my life at the end of it through integrating it over time.
And so the book is called How to
Fall in Love with Your Life One Week at a Time.
1 week at a time. All right, It's going to come out when? Middle of the month?
It should be out like October.
Okay. Good reading ahead. We'll be talking about that book at length. And if people would like to learn more, you want to direct them to your website, would be EmilyMadill.com?
Correct.
Okay. And there's a separate section on there about your coaching work. In addition, it must be still the section, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, with the books that you've written already. The
books,
Joe
and
series.
then I do write regular articles as well, too. So, that's all on there.
So it's like your schedule has become increasingly more full. You got your family and you got your travel, and now you've got this new career as well.
Yeah, I love it. It's all coming together. So, my hope is to do some workshops, and it really just all does, for me, come down to empowerment. And, even if that's just one conversation at a time or, one person at a time, it just makes me feel good to be even just a small part of that. So,
you know what you should do? You should do a TED Talk.
I would love to do a TED Talk one day. One day, Mark.
One day. Not now?
I'll be there as my support,
Okay. Emily Madill, EmilyMadill.com to learn more. Emily, always a slice of heaven talking to you. Thanks so much for the time today, and we'll talk real soon, okay?
Yep, sounds great. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye, Mark.
Emily.